Welcome back to Habit-Based Lifestyle Podcast. I am your host, Jesse Ewell. Today, we got a very special guest, a good friend of mine, Corey Frogley. Corey is the founder of Blue IQ, CEO of the Data Driven Practice, and then creator of the Driven Doc movement. Corey, hey, thank you for being on the show today, man.
Hey Jesse, so good to be with you.
Well, hey, you're a busy guy, so let's kind of dive into this today. Tell me like what got you started, man, as a chiropractor.
Yeah, I appreciate that. For those of you who don't know me, if you've never heard of me, I actually am the son of H. Ronald Frogley, who was the co-creator of the Thompson technique in the chiropractic world, but was also the executive vice president to David Palmer. So I'm the baby of that family. I'm the 10th of 10 kids. So my oldest brother is actually 25 years older than me. So 10 kids,
Wow.
seven boys, six of us became chiropractors. It's kind of a wild story.
That's so you were kind of born into chiropractic.
Yeah. I mean, my mom was told after just her first two kids that, they were pretty close together and she had some miserable labor, pregnancies, didn't really have any help other than traditional medicine. And so her OB pulled her aside and said, "You cannot have any more kids. At best, you're going to be crippled by your mid to late 20s. You won't even be able to take care of the two kids that you have." And so think of, Jesse, the volume of population that exists that get confronted with that type of decision, being told that from a doctor. I won't just pigeonhole the medical doctors, but doctors in general. Like it's sad when patients don't have really understanding or awareness of what other opportunities are out there. And this really led my parents down a path of looking at different types of alternative medicine, whether it was nutrition or whether it was acupuncture. This is back in the late 50s, Jesse. So
Wow.
they didn't even know chiropractic existed. My dad was on the roadmap to actually becoming a medical doctor because he was a medic in World War II. He was a Silver Star Award winner. He was just an absolute stud. So he
Wow.
was saving money for medical school in the FBI. They got stationed in Kansas City. Somebody just happened to say to my mom when they heard her story, "Hey, have you ever tried chiropractic?" And they hadn't. So they were introduced to that person's chiropractor, who was the very first physician that took x-rays of my mom's spine and found that she didn't have rheumatoid arthritis, which is what the medical profession was trying to diagnose her with. She actually had scoliosis.
Wow.
So he
Okay.
started treating her, and she had such an incredible recovery that they went ahead and tried having baby number three, and this time with no complications. I mean, it was miraculous. So that experience, my mom basically turned to my dad and said, "I don't think you're going to go to medical school. I think you need to go up to Davenport, Iowa, check out this chiropractic thing," which he did, an obedient husband, right? Happy wife, happy life. And so he went and had his chiropractic experience there, right there on the college, and immediately enrolled. And five kids later, he graduated, ended up getting hired onto that college there by David Palmer. And David eventually made him his executive vice president. And like I
Wow.
said, I became the 10th of those 10. So pretty
What a,
wild.
and your it sounds like your mom and dad went to work, man, after that third one and that experience,
They
huh?
got busy. They got busy.
Oh. Well, that's a pretty cool story, man. That's got a lot of history. So you're pretty much so what was it like for you, man, being a chiropractor in a family, being younger as your brother siblings started going through chiropractic school? What'd you guys do around the dinner table? Did you sit there and adjust each other or what?
Yeah, you can imagine, right? We were fighting for food, man. There were so many of us, but it's pretty wild being the youngest, the baby of 10. It would be easy to get lost in that type of a family because my siblings were freaking high achievers, man. Incredible in sports, great in music, and now, half of them moving on to become doctors, but all of them becoming successful in whatever they did. And I remember walking around town, and just because my dad was so well known and so beloved by his patients, so many people would come up to me and say, "Are you going to become a chiropractor?" Or like they wouldn't even ask me, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" It was naturally that default, "Are you going to be a
Right.
chiropractor?" And I just always defaulted to, yeah, of course, because I didn't know any better. And it wasn't until I was 15 that my dad pulled me aside and said, you know, you don't have to be a chiropractor. You can be whatever you wanted. And I had this really crazy experience, Jesse, where my dad's best friend was the executive vice president of a bank. It was almost kind of like that rich dad, poor dad thing, where my dad, super successful in healthcare, but we always felt like we didn't have enough money. And my friend's dad was always driving the latest sports car. He was always, taking us places to have fun. And I was kind of jealous of that. And he came up to my friend and I when we were 15 and said, "Hey, what are you doing this summer?" And I'm like, I don't know, chasing girls. I don't know. What do you do at 15?" And so he looked at us and said, "Hey, how would you guys like to buy and flip a house?" And I didn't know anything to do with construction or real estate at that time. I was raised with an incredible work ethic of working in a garden. I mean, we ate incredibly well from our own labor in a garden, but we did. I had saved $5,000 from a newspaper route, and I pitched that into the pool. We went out and we bought this house. It was tiny, but we spent the next 18 months gutting it and completely refurbishing it and sold it for 5x what we had bought it for. And
Wow.
that experience just blew my mind that money, there's so many different ways to make money, right? Money is in abundance around us everywhere. We just have to learn how to look for it and find it. And we rolled that money into another house, and then we did that into another house. And I ended up having enough money to buy my own car and help, through college, and I graduated with very little debt, and it was incredible. But it was that experience coupled with my dad's influence with healthcare that I really wanted to come to this profession and build something. I use the word influential because I wanted, first of all, a clinic that gave, I say access because I made this mistake, Jesse. I made the mistake thinking that accessible healthcare was necessary to change healthcare.
Right.
So, like a lot of doctors out there, I didn't know how to have conversations with patients about finances. If they couldn't afford it, I'm like, well, if you can't pay that, how about can you pay this? And so my first couple of years of practice were pretty thin. My poor wife and two brand new kids. It was that I fell into my dad's kind of pattern of this. We can't go on vacation. If I shut down the practice, we won't have income, right? I fell back into my poor dad mentality.
Right.
And I was so lucky to have some mentors that kind of, I signed up for some programs, I got some coaching. I learned my own money issues were really causing my own failure. My relationship with money, which I thought was good because I had learned how to flip houses and all these
Yeah.
things.
Well, let's talk about that for a minute because
Let's do it.
my industry, like the industry I came from was personal training. Obviously, you're in the health industry, but I think a common problem in the health industry is we are so focused on helping other people that oftentimes we forget that there's a business side to that. So can you like maybe speak into that a little more? Because it's a common thing that I hear come up all the time.
Yeah, one of the big topics that I speak on is identity, right? Look at you, for instance. I mean, you are fit, you're a good-looking guy, you dress well. People would look at you and naturally think, man, this guy won the lottery, the DNA lottery. He's just
Right.
amazing. But if anybody follows you, we see the work Jesse puts into his life. And it's not just that you do it physically, the way you do one thing is the way you do everything. And we see that in you. And this is an interesting identity that happens, especially in healthcare. As physicians, we typically go to whether it's functional medicine school, chiropractic school, PT school, whatever it is. It's because our DNA is wired to want to serve.
Right.
It's just a natural thing. We want to serve, but there is this broken mentality, unfortunately, that you have to give your services away because you end up sacrificing financial stability for patient outcomes. Like you want to be liked, you want to be successful, But your measurement of success is, are your patients getting well? And there's this massive mistake that we all make. I made it, of giving away the farm to get patient outcomes.
Right.
And what I didn't learn until a few years into it, which completely tripled my income, was that part of a patient's journey to getting well is them overcoming two obstacles. And it's these two obstacles. It's the same in the fitness industry. It's the same in whether you're a dietitian, whether you're a personal trainer, whether you're a whatever. If you don't get a patient to confront the lack of time they're putting into the outcome they desire, so they have to overcome the time barrier, but it's then the investment. It's almost like they have to give enough that it almost is uncomfortable to
Right.
change the pattern. And I'm sure you see this in the fitness industry all the time.
Yeah, I actually say that they have to confront the lie that they're telling themselves on why they can't have the body they want, they can't have the health they want, or they can't have the business they want, right?
Yeah,
um because let's be honest, people don't work with us because they want to stay comfortable. They work with us because they want to grow. But what they sometimes forget about is growth requires discomfort and resistance, and that's where a lot of the breakthrough happens. And you know that's hard for people if they're resistant to that growth.
yeah, 100%.
So yeah, man, I love that. So tell me, like, you're a chiropractor, your first, how many years did you actually have a clinic? And then when did you decide that, hey, I'm going to go from being a chiropractor to shifting over to, what you have now?
No, I appreciate that. It's a pretty wild journey because, as I said, I was battling this whole mindset of telling my wife I didn't have time to go on vacation because we would lose cash flow. And it was a mentor of mine that helped me realize that I really didn't have a business. I had a job, and I was the boss of myself, which was better than working for somebody else. However, I was a pretty strict boss. I wouldn't let myself have any time off. It wasn't built into the system. And I knew that's not what I wanted, Jesse. When I came into this profession, I knew I wanted to build something influential. And so, again, through some incredible mentors, I really learned the power of data-driven decisions. I started learning and diving into business books about KPIs, key performance indicators, really understanding lead and lag decision making. I was making all of my decisions on lag. I was looking at my bank account and making decisions off of that.
Okay.
I didn't
So
know how to go.
pause
What?
there for a second. So you have lead and you have leg. Leg is looking at your bank account and then making decisions. So kind of like scarcity based decisions. What does that typically lead to for someone who may be listening to this?
Yeah, so think about this for a second. If you're managing your business off your bank account, that means you're making reactive decisions on where that bank account is. And it's inevitable that you end up in what we call the cash flow business. You're pulling cash out of the business to fund your life. And when there's enough cash, you take the foot off the pedal a little bit because you can't keep pushing as hard as you're pushing without burning out. So you
Right.
risk burnout. So what happens, and inevitably this happens in a small healthcare practice, that if the same person is selling the healthcare, you call it selling, it is selling, but we call it treatment planning in healthcare, right? If that same person who's closing cases is the same person fulfilling the services for the cases, then what happens is you get desperate and you go to town selling, right? Attracting and converting new cases. But then all of a sudden you have all these patients that need treatment. So you hurry and run over and you start treating them, and you're so busy treating them that you forget you still need to be selling and closing. And so this roller coaster starts happening of good collection months, bad collection months, good collection months, bad collection months. That's the problem with the cash flow practice. I teach doctors how to create a completely different kind of practice. And The practice is called a dominator practice because when you discover your identity, there's two identities within every business owner. It's the physician that went to school to learn how to heal. We call that the prime provider. And then over here, you have this driven doc that needs to run the business, that has to put in the time and learn the skill set, just like they learn the skill set of how to get patient outcomes. But most don't do that. Like, so they're running their business on these lag measures of, do I have enough, right? Enough to pay the bills, enough to take the family on a little vacation, enough to buy that new car for the wife who's been begging for it for the last 2 years. And I don't want my doctors there, because if we truly are going to transform holistic healthcare to be the primary access of healthcare, that means we need a big enough populations of doctors who know how to build businesses that attract masses. That makes sense?
Yeah, for sure. So if we talk about the data driven practice, what are like the key indicators for that?
Yeah. So every business, doesn't matter if you're, again, what type, even a single doc or a single personal trainer running a personal training, you have 7 systems in the business. So those 7 fundamental systems, you can expand that out to up to 15 systems, but 7 systems. And every system, the marketing system, has a set of data metrics that you need to be aware of and you need to be watching. And you're a master at these because you teach organic marketing, and you look at engagement and these lead metrics, that when you're posting something, how do we get engagement? Because engagement is the upstream metric to then new deals. Once you have interest, how do we move that to the next step in that system, in the marketing system? So just like you teach, it's a big funnel, right? We're just moving people down that funnel until they book. When they book, we now have a sales process, and that's a combination of the front desk new patient system in a clinic and what we call the exam and case acceptance system. But, personal training, that's going to be a free personal training session that you're trying to help a customer commit to
Sure.
change, right? So that each one of those systems, and I can go all the way down all 7 systems, but each one has one key data point that is the indicator of how healthy that system is. No different than if you're measuring the health of the systems of the body. I can measure the cardiovascular system off of heart rate variability, blood pressure. Like 3 numbers, I can tell you pretty close how healthy your cardiovascular system is. So what are those numbers that are driving? And the reason why I became kind of obsessed with this is because it just made sense to me as a physician. I wanted to be able to diagnose my business just like I was diagnosing patients. And then I wanted a treatment plan. How do I move from collecting 20K a month to 30K a month? How do I move from 30K a month to 40K a month? It became so powerful, Jesse, that when I started understanding this and leading my team to start thinking this way, like giving them access to the data, helping them become what I called a system driver, meaning I didn't just hire a secretary, I hired a system driver of the front desk. That front desk team member became aware of, like, what's the valuable product that she was exchanging with the business. It wasn't her time. I
Right.
didn't want to pay her for her time. I wanted to pay her for a product, and it was on a scaling basis. The more products she produced, the more she made. And oh my gosh, Jesse, when I implemented that, I was blown away at the behavior change of the team, at the growth rate that we started hitting. I remember having my first $83,000 collection month, which is $1 million,
Million million
practice,
dollar, right? Yeah.
right? I remember hitting that and driving home so excited to tell my wife, like, we've made it. Like, I cracked the code. I had no idea that that was going to take me to $4.2 million a year with that practice, which eventually gave me enough cash to start investing in other places. And I was so excited about technology, and Long story short, I was able to fund with some partners building Blue IQ, which is now taking all the systems I had built and all the data that needs to be tracked for business and automating it, like putting it into a software that allows the team to start implementing what we call gamification, right? You've heard of gamification.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, this is on a whole new level where they get
So
to
so
see,
what I'm understanding is the data driven practice is a gamification of somebody's clinic,
yeah,
and it shows them how, I mean, basically how to win, right? And what
yeah,
key metrics are going to help you win, what key metrics are lagging, and then how by moving one up, then it affects all the other metrics.
yeah. I would, this has been a journey, and I didn't discover this overnight, but as I was building the software, right? I don't code. I hired our CTO and a dev team. We started building it. We launched it in 2019, and I was blown away. When these doctors got access to their data, how many of them were coming back and saying, "This is an incredible diagnostic tool, but what do I do? Like, how do I improve this system or that system?" And so that's where the data-driven practice was born because I had to build the systems for them to implement to basically triage the broken systems.
Got it.
So we talk about this concept of being a drifting doc versus a driven doc. And those drifting docs are the docs that just they show up to their practice and they react to the patients that show up. They show up to the practice and they solve all of their team members' problems. They show up to a seminar and they buy the latest shiny gizmo, thinking that's going to be the thing that attracts more new patients in their lives, right? That's a drifting doc. They have no control over their marketing, no control over their sales conversions, no control over team and associate doctors staying on. And this is why the average chiropractor out there is making $80,000 a year, 68 to $80,000 a year. The average
Wow.
chiropractor, an elevator repairman, Jesse, the average elevator repairman makes more than the average chiropractor.
Oh my gosh.
It's crazy.
Why do you think that is?
It's because they decided that they thought the vehicle to their financial dreams was opening up their own clinic. But they're confusing chiropractic school training with a business owner.
Got it.
If you're going to be a business owner, you're crazy to not invest in your skill set as a business owner, just like you invested in your skill set as a chiropractor.
This is a conversation like I have with chiropractors all the time. And I'll say, how much did you invest in your schooling? And they're like, well, a couple $100,000. I said,
I
okay, and
know.
how much have you invested in understanding business, sales, marketing, leadership? And a lot of times they're like, I mean, less than $10,000. And I'm like, well, look, why do you think you ended up in the place you're in?
Yeah.
So speak into that a little bit, because I mean, there's two sides I see. One, you got a bunch of people who have invested all the time hoping that all these things will fix their problems, but then they just don't execute, or whatever. And then you have the other side that's afraid to invest, because maybe they're in that leg, like you talked about, or scarcity. So their decisions are based off what's in their bank account. The other one is hoping someone else saves them. So maybe speak into that a little bit.
Yeah, you're spot on, Jesse. It comes back to identity. And I think one of the most powerful things you and I think, have both been through. We have written some pretty big checks to invest in ourselves.
Yeah,
We've talked about this. And it was going through that training that helped me understand my leadership DNA. As I mentioned, like how you do one thing is how you do everything. I was so passionate about treating patients that by somebody showing me how to run a business, because this is how I treat patients, this is how I ran a business. I was able to gain traction and move the needle because it doesn't matter if I'm taking care of my kids or, remodeling my basement. Like I'm going to put all of my heart and passion into it. So if you're out there, if you're a doc and you're struggling, you just got to look at, am I struggling because of my mindset? Do I have a scarcity mindset? Because the right diagnosis will then prescribe the right treatment plan. But if you don't have the right diagnosis, you're just going to be bouncing, again, drifting. And drifting, Corey, when I was, yeah, because again, imagine growing up with the dad who I grew up with, my brothers who I grew up with. I had incredible role models, but it wasn't until I got out there by myself that it was just me on this island. Like I had to figure it out. And the mistake I made was that I was alone. I had to figure it out. And that was so far from the truth. Any of my brothers were more than willing to coach me through and help me. And luckily I found mentors that I finally latched onto and began understanding my leadership DNA and the skill sets that I just was lacking, and it wasn't my fault. It's not these doctors' faults or personal
Right.
trainers' faults or anybody's fault that you're struggling if nobody's taken the time to show you.
Yeah, I
So
always say this, it's not your fault, but it is your responsibility,
it is your
right?
responsibility. Yeah.
And
I mean, you guys have Jesse in your world, and any of you that follow him, and like he is showing you step by step, like he gives you more in training than what most other coaching programs charge for, and he's giving it to you for free. And if you implement his free stuff, you'd be crazy not to. But if you implement his free stuff, you'll see a bump in your income. And the secret is to take that bump and buy his program because
right.
imagine what his paid stuff is going to do. It's going to take you through the roof. And that's what smart, driven, business owners do. They take the bump, they reinvest it in their skill set, they get a proper treatment plan to overcome whether it's scarcity mentality, perfectionism, procrastination, no clue how to delegate, no clue how to follow systems, and they just learn. And not saying it's easy, but when you do learn, there's fruits of those labors. And man, it feels so good when you're progressing as a business owner. Your business is progressing.
I think the key thing you said, man, is you felt alone. And I think that's especially for guys. I don't know if you notice this, but women, if they can't figure something out, they usually are like, they'll reach out, ask for help, right? A
They're so different.
guy, if they need help, they need to be beat over the head at least 20 times and failed at probably 100 before they're like, okay, now I'm ready for help.
Yeah, 100%.
Um, but I think that's a big thing, man, in every industry, just as a business owner or like even directions, right? It's like, hey, I think you should ask for help. Your wife usually tells you that, and you're like, oh, I got it, and then you finally end up somewhere you shouldn't be. And then finally she's like, I told you you should ask for help.
Yeah, it's like, how much time did you waste? And I think this is a big point, Jesse, is people think we have time. And especially when we're younger. And I'm knocking on the door of 51 here. I turned 51 in 2 weeks. And all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, like how long do I want to keep working? But the reality is that if I would have known what I know now 10 years ago, 20 years ago, like how much faster I could have accelerated my wealth creation. And so I see, I'm doing one of our free challenges that we're doing right now. We have a doctor in there. One of them has been in practice for 25 years. Another one has been in practice for 6 months. And they're telling each other, because we get them to talk and create community within it. The doctor that's 25 years in practice is telling the younger doc, do you know you just won the lottery by being here 6 months into practice instead of waiting 25 years like me? Because that time, that compounding effect was time. And I'm sure you see the same thing with your community.
It's really cool, I think, when people can get out of their own way and just kind of take off whatever was holding them back. That my favorite part is really just watching people break through their own beliefs.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite things to really watch people do. So
What have you found is like the number one thing that holds people back? What's been the pattern you've seen?
I mean, it's always going to come down to beliefs, stories, and things that maybe have been told to them or happened in their past. Like you said, like your dad, your example of business was your dad, and that was only your frame of reference until you met this other guy. So it's kind of like, hey, here's what you can do, or here's another way to look at life. And when you get exposed to that, and when you start to see the pattern of it, your natural, this is kind of what happens. We get stressed, and our natural operating system is to fall back to our lowest level of training,
Yeah,
highest form of addiction, which is your dad. But when I'm open and I'm not in that reactive mode, all of a sudden I look over here and I see something, some new possibilities, right? And
yeah,
so I really believe that we're in the middle of one of two things: either something that's held us back. If we can learn how to overcome that, we can now start seeing what's possible over here, and people all of a sudden start showing up to show us that.
cool. Yeah,
So,
that's good. That's really good. I'm sure your community gets that. I hope people really capture what Jesse just said on that default mechanism. It's almost like a operating system, a computer system. And when that system gets stressed, how easy it is to find yourself back in those bad habits. And like I'm sure having a community like yours, helping break those patterns. What are some of the things that you guys do to help break those patterns that people find themselves in?
I think the biggest thing, man, is recognizing the stories we tell ourselves and recognizing where we hold ourselves back. So if I say like, "Hey, Corey, I need you to go do execute on XYZ," and you come back and you're like, "Well, hey, I didn't X, did you go XY, did you go execute on XYZ?" And you're like, "Well, no, I went and executed on X."
Yeah,
Then I'm usually like, "Okay, well, why didn't you do Y and Z?" And so a lot of times people by default, they do what's comfortable. Or here's a better example. You can have the right ingredients of XYZ, but you can do them in the wrong recipe in the wrong order and still not
yeah,
get the result you're looking for.
totally.
And the best analogy was my daughter called me the other day and she was making cookies. And I said, "Hey, FaceTime me and show me what you have in the mixing bowl." Well, she had butter, a cube of butter. And then I said, "Okay, so you have flour in there." She goes, "Well, I followed the recipe." I said, "Okay, you did, but you didn't cream the butter and you didn't mix it with sugar first and do all the liquid ingredients and then add flour in last." And then she said, "Well, it didn't tell me to do that." I said, "Go back and reread the steps and then
Yeah.
see what it says." And she goes, "Oh, okay, I guess you're right." So it was kind of like this learning principle, but us, and I'm sure you see this, like you can have the right systems, the 7 things, but if you're not following the recipe for those, the result is going to be very different.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. And I'm sure you teach this as well in your community that, focusing on money is not what gets you more money, right? You got to go upstream. You got to go upstream and chase the value. And one of the amazing things I'm watching you do all the time on social media is you're just constantly giving value. And people are seeing that and they're attracted to that. And why aren't more physicians, they've invested $250,000 in this, but yet they think they have to make their money by one-on-one with a patient instead of going out and delivering value to a community like you're doing. And if they would create that content, if they would deliver that value, go way upstream, that trickle down effect is then what creates that. I've watched you do it with one of our incredible doctors. She's one of my coaches, Dr. Ashley. She is a freaking
here's the
awesome.
one thing I always say with value is if I don't know what you want, you can't value what I have to offer you.
Yeah, that's
And,
true.
so like value is different in everybody, but if I take the time to get a better understanding of what my audience wants, what my
Mhm.
ideal clients wants, then I can give them more value by delivering that to them.
Yeah.
Okay. But like here's the thing is what I see a lot of times, people would rather sound smart and teach than they would actually to take the time to find out, hey, Corey, like, tell me about you, man. Tell me about your life. Tell me about your business. Tell me what are things that you're working on. And so when I do that, it allows you the conversation to begin opening up dialogue. And,
Hmm.
and so once I do that, I can get a better understanding of what you want, what you find a high price of value in, and then I can start having a different conversation with you, asking you different questions.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
that's exactly right.
let me ask you this, man. What would you say, average, or just say this, what would you say the top two problems are in the chiropractic industry right now that you see?
So I would say there's two. The two top that I see is, like you said, number one, they don't know what they want. They think I mean, they want this intangible thing called freedom, but they don't define it. They don't know what that really is. They don't know what that means. And so they just go to the office every day and grind away. And they're exchanging their time for this paycheck, which is back to them having a job and not a real business. So that's the first problem is our profession is notorious for I would hate I hate to say it, but they're just in the hypnotic rhythm. Um, and they just fall into what life is giving them instead of realizing they have more control than they think. The other big thing that's happening in our profession is what we call consolidation. Consolidation has happened in the medical field in the 80s. It's happened in the dental field. It's happening in the vet space. And that's corporate healthcare coming into the marketplace. There is now chains of franchised brands of chiropractic out there now that are owned by either publicly traded companies or by PE companies, like companies that aren't in the healthcare space. They're business people. And so these business people are coming into our space and they're creating efficiencies to leverage more cash flow. And they're using our systems to do that. And the danger of that is you now have business people making business decisions that affect the delivery of the service
Right.
they don't have the profession's best interest. And so part of my purpose, my passion, why I really wanted to create this data automation and create the data-driven practice and the driven doc movement is to help our doctors become true CEOs of a business healthcare empire. So I'm not necessarily your guy if you're wanting to be a single doctor, see patients 20 days a week and go fish the other 20 or 20 hours a week and go fish the other 20 hours. That's not what I'm looking to help doctors do. I'm looking to help doctors build scalable healthcare empires, whether that's going from 1 to 2 employees up to 5 to 7 employees, whether that's taking your 10 employees and how to replicate that and open up more locations. I teach you the power of the multiple when it comes to economies of scale and valuations on your enterprise, your healthcare enterprise. And it's very different from 1 location to 5 locations, 5 locations to 12 locations. I teach you really the simple model. I've taken doctors who never in a million years thought that they would own more than one practice, and they now own more than one practice. Because once you gain the skill set, like the sky's the limit.
Right.
And that's the two big things that I see is these poor chiropractors stuck in the hypnotic rhythm of I don't have enough time. I don't have enough time. I don't have time. When really you have time, you're just exchanging it for a paycheck. And two, not being aware of what's happening in the marketplace, that if you would jump in and learn just a few skill sets, like you could change the trajectory of your life, and we could change the trajectory of the chiropractic profession.
Love that, man. One of my favorite sayings, and this always would happen in the fitness industry, was whenever I would ask a client what they wanted, like what's your goal, and they would always tell me what they didn't want. I was like, no, I asked you what your goal was, and then they come back and say what they didn't want. So I would always say this: if you don't know what you want, by default, you'll always get what you don't want. And, the point of it would be if you walked around and you asked 10 people what they wanted, nine of them would know exactly what they don't want, and only one of them would typically know what they wanted,
Yeah.
which is, basically what you said. I would say that's probably a problem with about 80% of business owners, not just chiropractors, not just trainers, but like that's really every business owner. And we're distracted with the day-to-day reactive work that we don't ever take the time to sit down and actually get clear on what we want.
No, 100%.
So
It is so worth slowing down, and it's an amazing process to help, others go through that process to identify what that is. And
so
yeah.
speak to the doctor, where you find the doctor where they're at, and then where they want to go to. Speak to that doctor really quick on why he needs the data driven practice.
Yeah. Um, when we really look at like life, you're going to spend your time one way or the other. And what you do, right, your repetitive patterns produces outcomes. And who you hang out with on a daily basis, you're the average, your income is the average of the seven people you hang out with, right? Good old Jim Rowe. So when you look at your life, if you're feeling like you're drifting, if you're feeling like you're burnt out, if you're afraid nothing's going to change in the next year, 2 years, 3 years, then it's time to upgrade your identity. And the only way to do that is to change your patterns. And that starts with changing your community. So that process is what the data-driven practice is all about. We've built a community of the largest group of seven-figure chiropractors in the industry. All of these doctors started under seven figures. They're now over seven figures and scaling. So we have the system. It's a reproducible system. None of us are smarter than you. It's just we slowed down to learn these new skill sets. And we've now put them together in a very simple process that if you'll just connect the dots and shift your identity to this driven doc, it's the driven doc that will drive the change in our healthcare. And if you want to be a part of changing healthcare, it's time to become a driven doc.
Boom. I love it. I got a shirt I'm gonna send you. So remind me when we
Okay.
get off here because it says upgraded across it.
I
So
love it. I love it.
um tell me this, man. We're gonna switch gears a little bit. We got a couple minutes left, but like tell me how you balance the triangle of insanity, being married, having a family, and business.
Oh man, I'm in the thick of it, bro. I've got four kids. Two of them have now just left the house, and I've got two at home. I'm really, really blessed to have a very entrepreneurial wife who is risk averse. I think she is willing to take more risk than even I am. She's amazing though. She's got her degree in marketing. She is just phenomenal. So the way we are able to spend time together is we're, this is our work life and this is our marriage life, and we've part of my motivation was to build a true business where we could go travel the world. That's something she and I really sat down and aligned on and really wanted. And you probably know Jesse Etler. His whole approach to the year is you plan your family events first, and then you plan everything else around that. And we started doing that a few years ago, and we took the family, fortunately, because of the kind of money we generate now with our businesses, we took the family to Greece. We took our family to Italy. We took our family to Thailand, on all these just amazing time that it forced, our kids that were getting ready to leave the house to be with us. And some of the bonding and the conversations just driving around Italy in this stupid little car or, walking around the ruins there in Greece. It was just incredible opportunities to be together. And so that planning those events first, and then we plan our businesses events, and then we fill it in with the other repetitive things that are key to building sanity, and that you're huge on it. Show me your daily rituals and I'll tell you what kind of mental health you have. And that's big. Mental health is a big deal to me. I've developed not only the driven doc movement, but the prime provider system, which is understanding a person's primary inflammatory driver, which isn't always a physical component. It can be
Yeah.
a neurological component, it can be an emotional component, it can be a spiritual component. So it's just becoming aware, right? Aware of what you really want. How do you pattern your life that leads to that path? And then just being tenacious on executing it.
That's good, man. So, tell me this: what habit that you do in your day to day life is one that you would recommend for anybody out there listening to this?
Yeah. For me, every day, I just make the commitment to climb the mountain. I just recognize every day it's starting over. It's a cycle and it's a cyclic pattern that's headed towards my grand vision. But for me, it's when I wake up, there's steps that need to be taken to get to a place where I feel influential. Because default, I don't feel influential, Jesse. By
Right.
default, I'm not I compare myself. I'm not as successful as, this, amazing business owner or that amazing business owner. It's easy to fall into those really dangerous patterns. And that's not mental health. It's a really dangerous place to go. And so when I take my nutrition, when I get my fitness in, when I get my study in and my meditation in, I come to the top of a mountain where I'm like, oh, let's go. Like I'm ready for the day. And that might be different than, like a Hermosi where he wants to get up, drink a cup of coffee, and go work for 4 hours before he, does some of his patterns. And that just doesn't work for me. I
Right.
have to climb the mountain before I unlock my creativity and things. So
That's
find your
good.
pattern. Not everybody's is the same.
Yeah, no, it's good, man. I love it. So, well, tell everybody on here if they want to reach out to you, they want to find out more about the data driven practice and what you got going on. What's the best way that they can get in contact with you?
Yeah, I appreciate that. So yeah, I mean, my social media handles, Dr. Corey Frogley on Facebook, on Instagram, on TikTok, on YouTube. Please, we've got tons of free content if you want to learn more about profit levers, more about data, more about making data-driven decisions. We've got 3 free courses that you can take. One on 46 secrets to an endless supply of new patients. We've got a course on how to build your A team. And we've got a course called Profit Levers, which are scalable systems for a business. And we'll put that link below so they can click on that and go take those free courses. We've got a free Facebook group called the Data Driven Practice. We'd love to have you in there and join our community of free. We have almost 1,000 doctors in there now who are chasing greatness. And if you're ready to chase greatness and become driven, then this is the community you want to be in.
Awesome. Well, hey, if you guys are listening to this, you've gotten massive value just from what Corey's given you, and he's been speaking about this whole time. So I can't imagine what. I mean, I know what it's like because I have several of his clients in my program. They speak nothing but great things about it. But if you're listening to this and you're wondering how to get in contact with Corey, just go down to the show notes, click his link, and you can go through his free trainings. I know the free trainings that I've seen, they're better than most people's paid trainings. So
Appreciate
make sure you go check that out. But Corey, I want to thank you so much, man, for being on the show today. This was one of my favorite podcasts, and I've done over 600. So
Oh my goodness. Way to go, bro. That means a lot. That's a lot coming from you. You hang out with some pretty big influences out there. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
well, hey, thank you so much, guys. Thank you so much for being a part of the habit based lifestyle community. If you have any questions or want some new episodes, feel free to reach out to me, Jesse at habitbasedlifestyle.com. Also follow me on Instagram, Facebook. Check out the show notes for those links. Until next episode, have a great day.